My adoptive dad sits me down on the day of my wedding and tells me there's one thing that I should know before he walks me down the aisle, and when he got done with the talk I immediately decided that my uncle would walk me down the aisle instead. I've always believed weddings are meant to be the happiest day of one's life. After all, it's when you officially start a new chapter with the person you love. You imagine this perfect moment, walking down the aisle, surrounded by family, sharing in the joy. But never in a million years did I expect to make a gut-wrenching decision minutes before I was supposed to say, I do. Growing up, I thought I had a fairly normal childhood despite losing my biological dad when I was young. He died in a car accident when I was around 6. And while the memories I have of him are few and fragmented, I know he loved me. After his death, it was just my mom and me for about a year before she met someone new. That's when John entered the picture, my adoptive dad. At first, I didn't understand what it meant to have a new dad, but John seemed nice enough. He and my mom got married, and within a year, he officially adopted me. Things moved quickly, but at that age, I didn't question it. I accepted John as my father because I was desperate for some form of stability. He provided for us, and on the surface, everything seemed fine. But looking back, I realized there were cracks in the foundation that I was too young to notice at the time. John was always somewhat controlling, especially when it came to finances. As I grew older, he took charge of every financial decision I made, from choosing my college to managing any money I earned. He often framed it as being protective, saying he just wanted what was best for me. But there was always this underlying tone of control. Despite the discomfort, I went along with it. I figured that's just how some dads are, right? Over time, it became clear that his relationship with my mom wasn't what I had thought. They would argue in hushed voices late at night, but the next morning, everything would seem normal again. I learned to ignore it, convincing myself that all marriages have rough patches. Fast forward to the day of my wedding. I'd spent months planning, imagining how everything would go. I had my dress, my venue, and everything was in place. John was supposed to walk me down the aisle. After all, he'd been my father figure for most of my life. But right before the ceremony, he asked to speak with me privately. I thought he wanted to share some touching advice or maybe even have a proud father-daughter moment, but that's when everything I thought I knew came crashing down. He started with the confession I never expected to hear. He had an affair, not just with anyone, but with one of my mother's closest friends. For years, he had been unfaithful. And the worst part was that my mother knew. She stayed with him for appearances, to keep up the facade of a stable family. But there was no love left between them. All the moments where I thought they were just having a rough time were actually their relationship unraveling behind the scenes. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. How could he do this? How could he look me in the eye for years, pretending to be a loving father, knowing what he had done to destroy our family? But that wasn't all. As if the affair wasn't enough, he dropped the second bombshell. He had been manipulating my finances for years. He admitted that he intentionally held me back, making sure I couldn't fully stand on my own 2 feet financially. Every decision he made under the guise of protecting me was actually about control. He wanted to keep me dependent on him, to ensure I'd always have to come back to him for help. And I did. I relied on him for far too long, never realizing I was being suffocated by the very person who was supposed to want the best for me. I sat there frozen as the weight of his words crushed me. How could someone who claimed to love me be the very reason I felt stuck for so long? The trust I had in him shattered in that moment. And I knew that I couldn't let him walk me down the aisle. I couldn't let him have that honor after everything he'd done to betray me and my mother. That's when I made the hardest decision I've ever had to make. I stood up, walked out of the room, and found my uncle. My uncle had always been the steady presence in my life. Someone who had no ulterior motives, no hidden agendas. He had been supportive of me in every way, and I knew he was the one I wanted by my side. I asked him if he would walk me down the aisle instead. I remember him being shocked, but he didn't ask questions. He simply nodded and hugged me, a silent acknowledgement that he understood how much this moment meant. I know he would have some questions, but that could wait. As I was walking down the aisle, I saw my mom. Her expression wasn't the warm, proud smile I had imagined it would be. Instead, she looked confused, almost hurt. My stepsisters, seated beside her, stared at me with shock and something close to fury. I realized in that moment they had no idea I had asked my uncle to walk me down the aisle instead of John. John wasn't anywhere in sight, and I wondered briefly if he'd even decided to stay for the ceremony, but I couldn't let that distract me. This was my day and my husband's, and I needed to focus on what mattered, the commitment we were about to make. At the after-party, while I tried to stay in the moment and enjoy the celebration with my husband, I could feel the eyes of my stepsisters burning into my back. They hadn't come up to congratulate me or offer a kind word like the rest of the guests. Instead, they stayed huddled together at a corner table, whispering furiously, their faces twisted with barely contained anger. I caught a few snippets of conversation as I passed by, words like betrayal, selfish, and how could she? Their resentment was palpable, but I refused to engage. I wasn't going to let their bitterness ruin what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Later, I heard that my stepsisters had stormed out of the reception early, fuming that I had disrespected them and their father by not letting him walk me down the aisle. To them, it was a personal affront, a public betrayal that they couldn't stand. But I wasn't willing to create drama at my own wedding. Not when this day was supposed to be about joy, love, and starting a new chapter with my husband. I told myself I'd deal with the fallout later. And today wasn't just about me. It was my husband's day, too. And I owed it to him to keep the focus where it belonged. Ever since that night, my mom had barely spoken to me after the ceremony. She hadn't congratulated me, hadn't hugged me. In fact, she seemed to avoid me altogether. I caught her eye a few times during the reception, but every time I tried to approach her, she found some excuse to disappear into the crowd. Now that the wedding was over, I felt the weight of what had happened crash down on me all at once. I tried calling her after the party, desperate to explain everything. She had no idea what John had confessed to me before the wedding. No idea why I had made the decision to ask my uncle to walk me down the aisle. I wanted her to know that it wasn't about hurting her or John. It was about protecting myself, reclaiming a piece of my life that had been taken from me. But every time I called, it went straight to voicemail. She wasn't picking up. At the same time, my phone buzzed relentlessly with messages from my stepsisters. Each one was worse than the last, vicious texts filled with all types of slurs and insults. They accused me of being selfish, of ruining our family, of humiliating John in front of everyone. They called me names I'd rather not repeat. And each message left me feeling more isolated, more conflicted. I knew I should focus on the positive, the fact that I had just married the love of my life, and that I was surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me. But it was hard to ignore the guilt gnawing at the edges of my happiness. My mom wasn't talking to me. My stepsisters were attacking me from every angle. And John, who had been such a massive part of my life for so many years, had likely written me off for good. I didn't know how to fix it or even if I should try. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely alone. Even though I was surrounded by people who loved me, I had made the right choice. But that didn't make it any easier to deal with the aftermath. My wedding day was supposed to be the start of a new chapter. And yet, I was already dealing with the wreckage of the old one. Now, as I sit here, I honestly don't know how to tell my mom what really happened. I don't even know if she'll listen. All I know is that she's not answering my calls. And I'm stuck trying to figure out how to explain a decision that feels impossible to explain to someone who wasn't there and who doesn't know the whole story. Meanwhile, my stepsisters are bombarding me with text after text. Each one more hateful than the last. They seem to think that by cutting John out of that one moment, I betrayed the entire family, that I've somehow destroyed something sacred. I just don't know how to tell when John told me when they had literally shunned me away from their lives. What do you guys think I should do? Update 1. Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. I'm currently on my honeymoon, and while this should be the happiest time of my life, I feel like I'm stuck in this emotional limbo. After everything that went down with John, I don't know if I can say I'm truly happy right now. My husband has been my rock through all of this, though. He's the one person who really understands what I'm going through. It's just him and my uncle. Without them, I don't know how I'd be holding it together right now. The day after the wedding, I finally told my uncle everything that had happened. What John had confessed to me, the real reason I couldn't let him walk me down the aisle. He was as shocked as anyone would be. It was like I shattered his view of John in an instant. My uncle has always been the steady one, the person I turn to when things get rough. But even he looked shaken by what I told him. He was quiet for a moment, like he was trying to absorb the weight of everything. And then he told me he'd see what he could do about Mom. Because, well, here's the thing. My mom isn't speaking to me. Since the wedding, she hasn't picked up any of my calls. It feels like she's cut me off entirely. Like the decision I made that day wasn't just about John, but about severing my relationship with her, too. I've tried calling her multiple times since then, hoping to explain everything, but she's either ignoring me or deliberately shutting me out. And the worst part? She's not the only one. My stepsisters have been flooding my phone with texts, nasty, cruel messages like I'm the villain in all of this. I don't even want to repeat the kind of things they've said, but let's just say they're painting me as some sort of traitor for not choosing John. I've seen a lot of people in the comments asking why I chose my uncle to walk me down the aisle. I get it. It probably seemed like a sudden, drastic decision to everyone, but trust me, there's a very solid reason behind it. After my biological dad died, before John entered the picture, my uncle was my everything. In that year, when it was just me and my mom, he was the one who kept me afloat. While my mom was drowning in her grief, trying to hold our lives together, it was my uncle who stepped up. He never tried to replace my dad or act like a father figure. He just made sure I wasn't alone during the hardest time of my life. I'll never forget how he used to pick me up from school when my mom was too overwhelmed to get out of bed. He'd take me to the park, help me with my homework, or just sit with me in silence, letting me cry or talk about my dad. He told me stories about my dad, things I didn't even know, like the time my dad snuck him out of the house to see a concert when they were teenagers, or how proud he was the day I was born. My uncle kept my dad's memory alive in a way that no one else did. When the rest of the world moved on too fast, he made sure I didn't feel like I had to forget him just to get through the day. When John came into the picture, my uncle didn't try to get in the way. He saw that my mom was starting to find happiness again, and he wanted that for her. I guess he thought John would be good for us. But even after John adopted me, my uncle was still the one I relied on. I trusted him in a way I never fully trusted John because my uncle had never let me down. He had no hidden motives, no strings attached to the kindness he showed me. That's why when everything came crashing down on my wedding day, when John revealed the truth to me, I knew my uncle was the one person I could turn to. It wasn't a decision I made lightly. But I couldn't ignore the betrayal I felt from John. He wasn't who I thought he was, and I couldn't let him walk me down the aisle pretending like everything was fine. I needed someone by my side who had been there for me truly and unconditionally. And that person was my uncle. The day after the wedding, we sat down for coffee, just the two of us. I finally told him the full story. How John had confessed to having an affair with one of my mom's close friends all those years ago. How he'd manipulated parts of my life to keep me dependent on him financially. My uncle was stunned. I don't think he could wrap his head around the fact that John, who had been a part of our family for so long, had done something like this. And I could tell he was angry, not just for me, but for my mom, too. We talked for hours. He told me he'd reach out to Mom and try to explain things from my side. I don't know what he plans to say or if she'll even listen, but it's comforting to know he's at least trying. My husband has been telling me to give it time, to focus on us and enjoy our honeymoon, but it's hard to completely push all of this to the back of my mind. It's like this dark cloud hanging over what should be the happiest time of our lives. The worst part is I don't know what's waiting for me when we get back home. I hope there will be some positive development by then, but I'm not holding my breath. Every time I check my phone, there's another hateful message from my stepsisters. They're furious with me for betraying John, for ruining what they saw as a picture-perfect family. They've called me selfish, ungrateful, and worse. It's like they've forgotten who I am in all of this. Like my feelings don't matter at all. To them, it's all about John. And I'm just the villain who wrecked their idealized version of our family. Right now, I'm trying to focus on the good, on my husband, on the life we're building together. But the weight of what's happened is still there, lingering in the background. And I can't shake the feeling that things are about to get a lot worse before they get better. I don't know how to make things right with my mom or even if I can. All I can do is hope that in time, she'll be willing to hear my side of the story. Anyways, that's where I'm at right now. Hopefully things will calm down when I get back home, but honestly, I'm not sure what to expect. I'll keep you all posted. Update 2. Hey everyone. I just got back home, and things have only gotten messier since my last post. I'm not even sure where to start, but I guess the best place is with my uncle. Right before we boarded our flight home, I got a message from him saying that he had gone to Mom's place to talk. I had a sinking feeling that things wouldn't go smoothly, but I never expected it to unravel the way it did. From what my uncle told me, the conversation didn't go as planned. He went there with the hope that he could make Mom understand my side of things, that I hadn't made the decision to exclude John from the wedding lightly, and that it wasn't an attack on her or our family. He thought he could get through to her, remind her of how close we used to be, how much I loved and needed her support. But John had already gotten to her. Apparently, as soon as my uncle walked into the house, John was there, ready to pounce. He had spun this entire narrative about how I had never truly seen him as a father, how I had always been distant, and how this was my way of getting back at him. He painted me as some sort of resentful, bitter person who had been harboring these feelings for years, just waiting for the right moment to humiliate him. John told my mom that everything I did, from choosing my uncle to walk me down the aisle to cutting him out of the wedding, was part of some long-con revenge I had been plotting since I was a kid. According to him, I had always been looking for an opportunity to show him that he would never be my real dad, and the wedding was the perfect stage for my little act of rebellion. When my uncle tried to explain that that wasn't the case, that I hadn't planned any of this and that John's own actions had forced my hand, Mom shut him down. She didn't want to hear it. By then, John had already twisted the story so much that she was convinced I had been playing a long game to hurt him, and by extension, her. She said she was heartbroken, that she couldn't believe her own daughter would go to such lengths to destroy the family she tried so hard to keep together. My uncle tried to get through to her, to explain the truth of what had happened. He told her about John's affair, the manipulation, how John had only revealed the truth to me hours before the wedding, hoping I'd be too shocked or devastated to change my plans. He told her how I had been left with no choice but to ask him, my uncle, to step in because John had shattered any trust I had left in him. But John, being John, was always one step ahead. He'd already convinced my mom that the entire affair story was nothing but an exaggeration, that I had blown it out of proportion in a desperate attempt to drive a wedge between them. He told her that the affair had been a mistake from years ago, something insignificant that didn't matter anymore. According to him, I was using it as a weapon to punish him, even though he had made amends with Mom a long time ago. Mom believed him. She didn't even question it. She accused my uncle of trying to poison her against John, of siding with me just because he was my dad's brother. She said that if my uncle had ever really accepted John as part of the family, this wouldn't have happened, that he had always been looking for an opportunity to undermine John's role in my life. The whole thing turned into a heated argument, with my uncle defending me and John painting us both as the villains in this twisted story. By the time my uncle left, Mom had refused to even consider talking to me. She told him that until I apologized to John, and to her, I wasn't welcome in her life. It's like everything we had as a family had been erased in one afternoon. All those years of John manipulating things behind the scenes, financially controlling my life, hiding his affair, and playing the role of the perfect stepdad had worked. Mom was so deep in his web of lies that she couldn't see the truth anymore. Hearing all of this from my uncle left me feeling numb. It wasn't like I hadn't expected John to badmouth me and to spin things in his favor, but hearing how easily Mom had believed him broke something inside me. I guess part of me had hoped that deep down, she would have my back. That no matter what John said, she would at least listen to my side of the story. But it turns out I was wrong. My uncle said she looked different, tired, maybe even a little afraid. He couldn't tell if it was fear of losing John or fear of what the truth might do to her if she accepted it. Either way, she's chosen him over me. I'm her daughter, and she's chosen to believe a man who lied to her for years, manipulated me, and turned our entire family upside down. I can't blame my uncle for trying. He did everything he could. But John is a master manipulator, and Mom's caught in his web. My stepsisters, of course, have fully sided with John. They think I'm out to destroy their perfect family, that I'm jealous or bitter or whatever else John has put in their heads. I've stopped reading their messages because they're filled with so much hate and venom that it's honestly too painful to deal with right now. Being back home doesn't feel like home anymore. My husband is trying to keep me grounded, telling me to focus on us, on the life we're starting together. But it's hard when I feel like I've lost my entire family in one fell swoop. The worst part is I don't even know what I'm supposed to do next. Do I keep trying to reach out to Mom, knowing she's already made her decision? Or do I just let go and accept that she's chosen John, no matter what the cost? Right now, I don't have the answers. All I know is that my uncle is still on my side. And that's the only thing keeping me from completely falling apart. I'm hoping that with time, maybe Mom will see things for what they really are. But I'm also preparing myself for the possibility that she never will. Anyway, that's where things stand. I wish I had better news, but for now, I'm just trying to take things one day at a time. Update 3. Hey everyone. It's been a few days since my last update, and I finally did what I had been dreading. I went to talk to my mom face to face. After everything that's happened, I felt like it was the only option left. Avoiding her and waiting for things to fix themselves clearly wasn't working. So, I took a deep breath, mustered all the courage I had left, and went to see her. The second I walked into the house, I knew it was going to be an uphill battle. I could feel the tension in the air, like I wasn't welcome in what was once my own home. When Mom saw me, the look on her face was cold. I could tell she had been fully convinced by John's lies. It was like I had been transformed in her mind into this ungrateful daughter who had turned her back on her family. She didn't even offer me a seat. I could tell she wanted to get this over with. So, I got straight to the point. I tried to explain my side again, just like my uncle had, but she wasn't having it. At first, she repeated all the things John had said. How I had supposedly been holding on to resentment for years. How I never saw John as my real dad and was looking for an opportunity to hurt him. She even threw in how disappointed she was in me for ruining what should have been the happiest day of my life. It was like talking to a wall. No matter what I said, she shot it down, defending John at every turn. She kept saying things like, "You never appreciated him, and you were always looking for a reason to push him away." I could feel my frustration building. But I tried to stay calm. The last thing I wanted was to start a screaming match with my own mother. I just kept telling myself that she was under John's influence, that this wasn't really how she felt deep down. Then I finally told her the truth, the real truth. I laid everything out in the open. I told her about the affair John had with her friend, how he had been lying to her for years, sneaking around, disappearing for long spans of time. I told her how he had confessed everything to me on my wedding day, of all days, and how it shattered the image I had of him in a matter of minutes. I told her how he had controlled me financially, keeping me dependent on him, and how I never said a word because I didn't want to hurt her. For a moment, it felt like she wasn't even listening. She just stood there, her arms crossed, shaking her head as if she couldn't believe what I was saying. But I kept going because I had nothing left to lose. I told her that I had no reason to lie, that I hadn't once said a bad word about John all these years because I wanted to keep the peace. I reminded her that I had accepted him as my stepdad, that I let him be a part of my life and never questioned his role in our family until the truth came out. The room was silent after that. I could see the denial on her face, but there was something else, too. Something like doubt. She didn't respond right away, and for a moment, I thought maybe I had finally gotten through to her. But then she asked me, "Why now? Why would John tell you all of this on your wedding day?" And to be honest, that's a question I've been asking myself ever since it happened. And I told her the only answer I could come up with. I don't know. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe he wanted to sabotage my day because he couldn't stand to see me happy without him at the center of it. Or maybe, deep down, he wanted to clear his conscience before I started a new chapter in my life. I'll never really know his reasons. All I know is that his confession shattered everything I believed about him. I could see Mom processing it, but she didn't want to let go of her belief in John. She kept saying things like, "He loved you. He's always been there for you." And while part of that was true, he had been there, physically at least, it didn't change the fact that he had been lying to her for years. He wasn't the man we thought he was, and I couldn't pretend otherwise anymore. At that moment, I realized my mom wasn't just trying to defend John. She was trying to protect herself. She didn't want to face the reality that the man she had trusted, the man who had been part of our family for so long, had betrayed her in such a deep way. And in a weird way, I understood. It's not easy to face the truth when it means tearing apart everything you've built your life around. Eventually, she sat down. She didn't say anything for a long time, and I didn't push her. I could tell she was battling with herself, stuck between the love she had for John and the truth that was staring her in the face. I don't know if she fully believed me by the end of the conversation, but I think something shifted. There was a moment when I saw her walls crack, just a little, like she was finally starting to see through John's facade. I didn't expect any grand resolution in that one conversation. In fact, by the time I left, we were still in a weird place. But I hope, that I planted a seed of doubt in her mind. Maybe it'll take time, but I believe she'll come around eventually. She has too. As for John, I haven't heard a word from him since the wedding. And honestly, I don't care too. Many of you have asked why he would drop such a bombshell on my wedding day of all days, and I wish I had a clear answer for you. Maybe it was a twisted attempt to absolve himself of guilt. Or maybe it was just a way to ruin my happiness because he couldn't handle not being the center of attention. I don't know. All I do know is that he's succeeded in destroying any trust I had in him, and nothing he says or does now can fix that. Right now, I'm focusing on my marriage and trying to rebuild some semblance of normalcy. My husband has been my rock through all of this, and I don't know what I'd do without him. My uncle has been checking in on me. And while things with my mom are still fragile, I'm hopeful that with time, we can repair our relationship. But it's going to take a lot of work. And I don't know if things will ever truly go back to how they were. Anyway, that's where things stand for now. I'll keep you all updated if anything changes, but for now, I'm just trying to move forward and find some peace in the middle of all this chaos. Thanks again for all your support. It really means a lot. Update 4. Hey everyone. I never thought I'd be back with another update, but here we are. A lot has happened since my last post, and honestly, I'm still processing everything. First off, Mom finally left John. After our last conversation, I wasn't sure what to expect, but it seems like the truth finally caught up with him. My uncle told me that after I left, he went back to speak with Mom. They had a big argument, and John tried to deny everything at first, but it was like the more he tried to defend himself, the more he backed himself into a corner. I think all the years of lies, manipulation, and deceit finally caught up to him, and he couldn't hold up the facade anymore. Eventually, John broke. He admitted to the affair with her friend, to disappearing for long stretches under the guise of work, and to all the other things he kept hidden over the years. It wasn't a pretty scene from what I heard. Mom didn't take it well. Obviously, she was hurt, angry, devastated, all the things I expected her to feel. But I think she also felt a deep sense of betrayal, not just by John, but by herself. She had trusted him, believed in him, and now all of that was gone. The life she thought she had built with him had been based on lies, and it shattered her. A couple of days later, she showed up at my place with a suitcase in hand. She didn't say much at first. She didn't need to. I could see the guilt in her eyes, the regret for not believing me sooner, and for standing by John when I needed her to stand by me. She stayed with me for a few days, and during that time, we didn't talk much about John or what happened. Instead, we focused on reconnecting, trying to rebuild the trust that had been broken between us. It wasn't easy, but it was a start. I could tell she felt terrible for how things went down. And while I wasn't expecting a grand apology, I could see that she was trying to make amends in her own way. I appreciate that more than anything. And then there are my stepsisters. After everything came to light, they finally got the full story, too. For the longest time, they believed the narrative John had spun, just like Mom had. They thought I had turned my back on the family, that I was the one causing all the tension. But once they learned the truth, they started reaching out to me, apologizing for the way they had treated me. I could tell they were genuinely sorry. They didn't know the truth, and John had done a pretty good job of twisting the story to make himself look like the victim. I assured them that none of this was their fault. They were just as much in the dark as I had been for so many years. Honestly, I'm grateful that my stepsisters and I are on good terms now. Whatever John did, it doesn't affect the bond I have with them. They're still my family, and I'm glad we can move past everything that's happened and start fresh. We've talked a lot over the past few days, and I think we're in a good place now. It's nice to have that weight lifted, to not feel like I'm caught in the middle of some family war anymore. As for John, well, I haven't heard from him since he left. I don't know where he is. And honestly, I don't care. I'm done with that chapter of my life. My focus now is on healing, on moving forward with my husband, my mom, my stepsisters, and my uncle, the people who actually matter. It's been a long, emotional journey, but I feel like I'm finally coming out on the other side. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you to all of you. When I first posted here, I didn't expect much. I thought maybe a few people would read it, but I never anticipated the outpouring of support, advice, and genuine concern from strangers on the internet. You've helped me through one of the most difficult times in my life, and for that, I'll be forever grateful. I never knew strangers could care so much about my well-being, but I'm thankful every day that I took the chance to share my story here. So, thank you, Reddit, for everything.